to cut away, to endure. These two sides represent shinobi, and it is two of the greatest wielders of one side that start a causal chain, the latter synonymous with the brilliance of light, yellow flash. Like his epithet implies, he shined incredible rays that both captivated his comrades and blinded his enemies, a presence that resounded throughout the shinobi world. If it didn't haunt someone, it inspired them, a name on par with the god of shinobi. But, on the other hand, this title reveals a grim reality. Minato might have streaked through the battlefields and ended up in the Hokage's seat, but he just as quickly is snuffed out by an opposing darkness, his life cut short in the same way he battles, ending in a flash. And it's not just any darkness that claims him, but a previous luminescence he once helped spark. The fourth Hokage's inner sun, while truly grand, did not expand wide enough to warm enemies in the same way it did comrades. And for that, he plays right into Madara's vision. What got the fourth here were bodies of the vanquished, sacrifices of his kin, two being ever so close to him. Yet he endured those deaths with the aid of his other half. But it is that very half that is sacrificed for a dead-end road. And this transgression is not enacted by an enemy, no, but by one of those treasured kin Minato related to the most. His path, his light. It didn't reach far enough to expose the true face behind a mask. Deception is a shinobi's greatest tool, and Obito weaponized the most potent trick of all. The name Madara alone bears enough weight to even affect the era's greatest light. It shrouded him, confined him, so he could only see what Obito wanted him to, just like what Madara did to him, explaining his idea of truth, and manipulating everything around the young Uchiha to perfectly depict exactly what he preached, all so he could pass his name on to another. Not for inheritance, but as a loan so that he could reclaim it in the far future. Madara takes the individual before him and contorts him into an asset. Sounds familiar, right? Because it's the exact process that makes shinobi, to cut away the heart so that a true weapon remains. Madara would criticize this cruel reality time and time again, yet no one danced with it as fluidly as him. A contradiction. He believes that this methodology is the only way to break the world's curse, yet his methods only add to the causality of despair. One of these disasters spurs the calamity that initiates this tale. Yet, while Minato was indeed defeated, even in death, he never gave up. And this remaining ember spawned a small glow that would eventually surpass his own brilliance. In his final moments, the fourth Hokage chose to commit to his belief in shinobi, endurance. Not for a world stuck in the same cycle of violence, but a new world that his offspring would create. And Naruto, like his father hoped, would endure this gravity forced upon him. Not because shinobi are cruel, therefore this is the only reality for them, but because one must hold immense weight to grow large. And to be grand enough to change the system, you'd need an unprecedented presence, a radiance surpassing the fourth Hokage. Completely contrasting Madara's relationship with Obito, Minato entrusts his hope to Naruto. A clear vision not directly conveyed versus a murky path explicitly constructed. One day, these legacies would collide, one of light and the other of shadow. And for two sides to meet, a bridge must be formed. The bridge Kishimoto constructed? Kakashi. It's only poetic that this first arc is one with the construction of a bridge at its center, and Kakashi leads the charge. Copy Ninja Kakashi, Kakashi of the Sharingan. He's known by many names. Like his master, these epithets span worldwide, but one that is often overlooked is his tertiary title, Son of the White Fang. And it's perhaps the most important to understand his character's proclivities. His origin is one rooted in the side of shinobi that looms in shadow. Sakumo chose to reject shinobi dogma. When told he and his comrades were tools for a mission, he responded by not severing his heart, thereby preserving his bonds. He preserved his humanity only for the things he treasured to become trash, turning against him until he too became putrid. How is one meant to endure when the things they fight for are no longer there? However, unlike Minato, whose yellow hair symbolically conveys his ability to see light in the darkness, Sakumo is pure white, a blank canvas that can be readily dyed any color. And if too much black gets on his page, his soul will turn black as well. There was light there, always, small as it may be, in his son. Minato was keen enough to acknowledge his, but before Kakashi's radiance could remind him of what he still had, the shadow smothered him, enshrouding what he left behind in the aftermath. The laws of the world should be followed, even if painful. What results from detracting from it leads to a result far more excruciating, one impossible to endure. Although, true to the prevalent occurrence in Naruto, in comes a figure impossible to go unseen. Naruto had Iruka, and in turn, that leads Sasuke to have Naruto. Paralleling the cycle of cutting away the heart, the cycle of endurance goes as follows. One cannot survive cruelty walking alone, and in the hellscape of war, Obito is there to remind Kakashi who's been stepping beside him. Even if they are considered trash, they'll take that label together, softening the blow all the while. Ah, so this is what his father couldn't see, something this young man observes so clearly. And it is this vision that awakens Obito's enhanced sight. By committing to preserving his heart, Obito transcends. The large heart he wields reflected in his new eyes, and with this surge of strength, he succeeds in what he sets out to do. Not alone, but together with the one his brilliant light inspired, a warmth reminiscent of a Hokage's will of fire. But alas, similar to his masters, these flames would burn out as quickly as they started. Darkness persists, and Madara's words come into play. Wherever there is light, shadows follow. Obito gave Kakashi insight that opened an eye literally doomed to be closed, and this young shinobi would carry this enhancement for the rest of his career. But, in the process, Obito's remaining eye stays closed for that same length of time. Even when he opens it again, it's in a place far too dark to truly see. And because of this manipulation, the shadow lurking underneath his luminescence binds him, burying Obito and summoning Madara. But he could never truly kill his former self. After all, even if he cut away all that made him who he once was, there's still a part of him out there that refuses to forget his previous ideals. Ironically, the very life that Obito once walked through, disregarding it as inconsequential because it's part of a false world, becomes the very thing that would eventually lead to his new path's failure. His old self would eventually reunite with him to restore Uchiha Obito, that vestige of the past conveyed through Naruto. What starts this build-up is the very beginning of this story. Here, at an unfinished bridge, a master showcasing his way of shinobi, one that goes against the grain in the same way as Obito's, and students who in turn inherit it. Kakashi once affirmed that he would never let his comrades die, and the genin he instructs that's most like him is the first to actualize this lesson. Sasuke goes beyond what his master portrayed. Like Obito, he didn't think of himself in that moment, only the cherished comrade next to him. But this fading light casts an immense shadow. Madara's words creep in again. With the loss of love, hatred is all that's left, and Naruto uses that wrath to crush his opponent. Almost. What stops him is humanity. Haku once showed his. Before this battle, when the mask was absent, Naruto could see all of Haku, what he truly is. Someone who may call himself a tool, but his actions only prove that everything he does is in adherence to his own will. When the mask comes off, Naruto sees the same face that resonated so much with his own beliefs. Perhaps this is the very reason Obito's greatest despair is one swarmed by masks. The hidden mist villagers, with faces veiled, only appear as cogs in a machine called the shinobi system. While Obito rejects it, enshrouding himself with a mask of his own, he subsequently relishes in the same carnage that propagates it, just like the man who loans him a new name. Naruto, though, breaks through the deception before it's too late, and what lies behind it isn't a personification of the world's dogma, but a man just as scarred as he. In reality, this battle too is a deception, one orchestrated from Haku's adherence to the heart. He couldn't kill those who displayed the same love that Zabuza gave to him. It's what made him who he is now, after all. That humanity is stronger than any vapid tool. However, it's because this love can be so powerful that the slightest tear can be all the more painful, which is why, when it's gone, it reminds those left behind reality's cruelty. For the second time in his life, someone he didn't intend to kill stands in front of Kakashi's weapon, opening his old wound. On that same setting of death and despair, Kakashi was forced to witness what tethered him to the world crumble again. No matter how many jutsus he copied, none of them were ever enough to save the people who mattered most. His sensei, his hero, and now his last remaining comrade. And it is his ultimate jutsu that cuts her away. No matter one's talent, no one can defy death. And no matter how powerful you get, the blight of pain will still hurt all the same. But it's another strength not affiliated with combative prowess that enabled Kakashi to survive through all those fatal blows. The words that Obito left behind. Now, not only actualized by this sensei, but the ones he mentors too. In this haunting environment reminiscent of his old scars, a familiar light steps in front of Kakashi, like Minato always did back in adolescence, and just as Obito did on that fateful day. Sasuke's action contextualized Haku's words about true strength, and Sakura's tears streaming behind Naruto remind him of his first and most important lesson as a shinobi. It's a lesson that even Kakashi couldn't teach, but now the master learns. It's this scenery that would later compel him to appeal to Naruto's emotions so unabashedly. While Sakura cries for a comrade, Naruto goes a step beyond this portrayal of humanity. He cries for an enemy. And here we see the beginning of the end. The same force that defeats Zabuza would one day defeat Naruto's last obstacle. In every instance, all it takes are simple words of the heart, a power unreachable when the heart is cut away. Every villain Naruto faces tries to do just that, and the final villain of this story showed his true heart just before this resolution in the Land of Waves, which is why Naruto never gives up on it, because even all the way back here, Sasuke did nothing but validate its existence. Obito did the same on Naruto's birthday. Despite outwardly portraying severance from everything, even his own name, he constantly moved in contrary ways. His actions were perfect. Everything went as planned. Madara could have walked away with Nine Tails and later completed Operation Tsukinome, but his humanity intervened. He chose instead to ensure the destruction of his past so that Uchiha Obito could never again emerge. And to do this, he would demolish everything that shaped him. His home, the leaf. If he was truly Madara, an identity departing from individuality, then this wouldn't be necessary. But here, always, deep down, Obito couldn't be cut away. Humans can never truly sever their heart. And this desperate attempt to carve out his humanity emboldened the life that would later retrieve his lost self. That tailed beast might have cursed Naruto's fate, made him hate the world in the same way Obito does. But it is Iruka's simple words that ultimately initiate Naruto's journey of endurance, the path that Minato believed in and entrusted to his son in death. Healing can only be commenced when scarred, growth can only be achieved through pain, and two opposing sides can only be connected by sharing the same pain. Every time Obito tries to bury himself, a small seed seeps out from within. It plants a force large enough to contest the divine tree. Madara's plan would eventually be eclipsed by the things his successor left behind, one that traces back to Minato's belief. And it's Obito's other seed that gives Kakashi the ability to spur Naruto on this path of endurance. At those graves, with so much confusion about the system and the world, Kakashi doesn't hold back his perspective. On that day in the Third Great War, he was taught a lesson he'd never forget, one that goes against the grain. And so, like his sensei, Naruto too vows to live a life independent of the shinobi dogma. This vow would stay consistent with the passage of time, becoming the very thing that one day changes the 5 great nations. Even when Naruto wavers, the ones he connected his heart with would come to his aid so he wouldn't be buried, both comrades and former enemies alike. And in turn, Naruto would do the same for them. When past wounds confront Kakashi again, threatening to paint him black like his father, it's Naruto's words he learned from Kakashi that revive his sensei's fervor, words that originate from the enemy they face. Everything comes full circle. And, in the process, these two former teammates stand together once more as redeemed men. Kakashi forms the bridge between the current Obito and the past Obito by instructing Naruto, thereby enabling himself and his friend to heal. Neither could do so alone. Endurance is impossible to achieve in solitude. This is exactly how Madara started his legacy of shadow. With pain, he responded by running from all that hurt him, leaving behind all connections. Even when he faces them, it's not to resolve anything, but to indulge in the world's cycle of violence before wiping it away. And for that hypocrisy, for submerging himself in the same place that he's supposed to be detached from, his ultimate plan is put on pause. Uchiha Madara becomes a ghost, an existence in limbo between the real world and his world of dreams. He's forced to spread his shadow slowly over many years, contrasting Minato's legacy of light that blitzed through the battlefields before dissipating into his sun. When both of these figures revive, Madara takes back what he loaned with interest, absorbing all power into himself, while Minato literally gives his power to Naruto in order to ensure what he entrusted can continue this shared dream of the future. Even after Madara thwarts this attempt, it is his false legacy of shadow that returns before him with a new face, the retrieved Obito, through Minato's legacy of light. He takes back hope for the one that revived him, and uses it to literally revive that same shinobi, everything coming full circle again. And speaking of full circles, this proponent of endurance spends his final moments receiving confirmation on what he entrusted. Words that couldn't be conveyed to Naruto 17 years ago, but were never truly lost. Where Madara's words are silenced by the shadow he thought he conceived. His legacy was never his at all. While leading the Uchiha, the pain of loss made him lose sight of a path he once shared with Hashirama, a road of light called endurance. He once named the very land symbolizing this dream of a new future, concrete evidence in his previous belief. But with cold reality settling in, a hint of what the future would look like appeared before Madara. Using his keen eyes, he could see exactly who would lead after his rival, and where that would take the leaf. Stability would be shaped in some form, but a shadow just as immense would take shape under that foundation. This phenomena perfectly depicted through Hiruzen and Danzo's dynamic. Madara could indeed foresee problems, but he couldn't fully capture the best solution. He'd already been exposed to concrete proof that light persists in hearts that endure for a purpose. Hashirama completely committed to his ideals, passing on his will of fire and death. And Madara stopped this process because he finally saw that only together could they achieve resolution, not alone. Madara walked that path of union, but while the two friends had matured, Madara accurately assessed that the world had not. Wars would still continue, children would still be forced to die. As long as love exists, pain will follow, thereby leaving only wrath. He seeks to cut away everyone's heart because that is the origin of it all. The root of suffering lies in what defines humanity. However, there's another potential through pain, one only being achievable when it is distributed. If Madara had stayed in that budding land, if he'd stayed by Hashirama's side, together with his insight and his friend's bountiful optimism, they could have achieved something similar to what we get by the end of this series. But he decided that completely eliminating the problem was better than working with it. This he only believes because what is endurance if it'll only lead to the same point? What is resolution if the world is only destined to be inflamed by conflict again? He wouldn't even convey his newfound outlook to Hashirama because his friend did not share the same pain that comes with swallowing the reality of a world that cannot change. So, mutual understanding is lost. Yet, again, Madara had already reached a conclusion that validated its existence. All he needed to do was try skipping that stone once more, exchanging his woes with another. And at the end of this long, distorted road, he does just that. It's simple words Hashirama uses to reach what he couldn't before. Then he could only achieve this through his newfound perspective, a perspective shaped by seeing the seeds he planted as Hokage bloom in the present day. Humanity has endured the failures of his age and the eras after by coming together, not as one entity, but as individuals connected by a shared pain. This shared strife revealing how alike they are, inspiring them to stand side by side. Madara could not accept humanity's true heart, because complete acceptance comes with embracing its darkness as well. Ironically, while he lurked further in the shadow than any other, only ever being overshadowed by an alien from afar, he simultaneously loathed its presence. But as the monk who once hosted darkness of his own etched on his palms, only through acceptance of the entire heart can love be found. Only through acceptance of the darkness can one find light. And that Bunpuku does. This small ray of connection lasting long after he fades away, connecting another soul like him to Shukaku. Minato displayed the exact same idea with his final actions, an argument about life and death. With a fresh new life before them, Minato plants his foot firmly. We are a family of shinobi, those who endure the dark to see the light. While their departure will certainly mean pain for Naruto, Minato accepts that reality so that he can see another path forward. He sees the radiance beyond the shadow. By sacrificing his soul, he ensures another soul will grow stronger and believes this pain won't crush him. The importance of friendship, the importance of love Kushina speaks of. That's the remaining half of the ideology Minato argued, both parents giving their son a holistic solution for the world with the last selfish actions of their life. Minato with his insistence on dying for Naruto, and Kushina with her drawn-out motherly advice that takes up all the remaining time. By internalizing both actions, Naruto finds his answer. While Minato accepted the circumstances of the world, he could not find it within himself to look at his enemies in the same way he did his loved ones. As his epithet conveys, he ended their lives in a flash, always finalizing bouts before he could give himself a chance to peer beyond their exterior. The one time we see opponents last long enough for Minato to catch a glimpse of their humanity, he merely acknowledges it, but rests on the notion that he has a reason of his own to fight, disregarding how similar it is to the ones before him. But keeping in mind Kushina's words about friendship, Naruto is fortunate enough to have a friend who is later labeled an enemy, giving this shinobi a novel perspective, one that would lead him to extend the new ideology he acquires to the entire shinobi world. He endures the hardships, sees his comrades and enemies alike endure the same, and accepts the cycle of conflict to bridge hearts and create love. Not accepting the pain, but accepting where the pain can lead if distributed. Just like his comrades took blows for him, sometimes even sacrificing all of themselves in the process, Naruto would extend a hand to his enemies, giving them a chance to have someone in the hellscape of solitude take some of that pain off their shoulders, giving them a chance to endure, just like an unnotable academy teacher did for him at the beginning of this story. This small action cascading into a grand action, but using the same power of empathy all the same, connecting many against all odds. The path of severance is one separate from humanity, because it's impossible for humans to cut away their heart. Yet even after crushing the living embodiment of a tool with the strength of humanity, and even still after seeing another so much like him find solace in his failure, Sasuke grabs that mantle of shadow. For just like Madara, just like Obito, he closed his eyes long ago. Therefore, he believes he can change the world alone. Luckily, he isn't alone. Not yet. Because now, there's a light in this world that surpasses the Yellow Flash's radiance. It's a streak that emerged well before both of them, in the distant past. Something akin to a wish from a generation plagued by violence and hate. A hope that two sides at war can connect into one unit, providing the world with peaceful balance. The solution lies in acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of the opponent. Acknowledgement of oneself. After all, it was one acknowledgement that stirred this thin path of enlightenment. Itachi's words filled with regret stirred Sasuke's core, compelling him to gain perspective. It was simple acknowledgement that enabled Sasuke to seek something outside himself for the first time in a long time. And what he finds gives him even more acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of the things these four failed to see in life. In the origin of this shared causality of strife exudes the sincerest regret of all. These are all men people hail, but they speak of everything but success in their dialogue. And so, Sasuke does the most logical thing given the failures of the past, to wipe the slate clean. But, as he should have noticed, time and time again, he was proven wrong before he and his rival landed in this valley. Proven wrong again when he gets a glimpse of Naruto's journey. He once displayed empathy for a shinobi of an enemy nation, one who hurt his friends. Yet, through all that pain, Naruto's adversaries was the most glaring. And with this emotional thread of understanding, Gaara returns as a beacon for change. He helps the enemy land that he was once ordered to destroy, does his part to save another like him from a similar darkness. And not just that, but he learns from Naruto's strength as well, becoming a Kage yearning to bridge gaps, a dream that would one day expand to the 5 great nations. When Naruto saves Gaara again, he solidifies the union between sand and leaf, one small step toward changing the war-driven world. And it's this man Naruto changes so much that decrees the most pivotal words of all for achieving alliances. First in his words of disapproval to his fellow Kages, which even reach a generation as far back as Oninoki's, and again when he stands in front of a staggering alliance. They cannot fathom fighting side by side with those who would have taken the opportunity to stab them in the back in the last war. But Gaara gives them a lesson in the form of a simple recollection. A boy like him in every aspect, the only difference being his birthplace, yet this one distinction being all that matters in the scope of war. Once they battled, once they saw the vulnerability that was left over, all that remained was what linked them, their humanity. And here, Gaara recounts that quiet moment, unifying everyone with a loud decree of humanity. This same unanimous shout can be traced back all the way to the Land of Waves, all these different sides facing down on a bridge. To the Land of Waves citizens, shinobi are a symbol of fear. After all, they can only be weaponized by those with wealth. And in a region as poor and broken as this, no one has the means to truly defend themselves. However, right here, there are ninja doing their utmost to defend their symbol of hope. Not for the mission, that goal ended the moment they set foot out of the leaf, but for the future. Naruto, with his words, inspired Inari to use his too, spurring the citizens to fight for their future as well. This same radiant scenery depicted when the Shinobi Alliance are inspired by Naruto's relentless adherence to his own Shinobi way, the same Shinobi way that manifests during this much smaller conflict. Here, Naruto merges all sides by portraying his heart, inspiring others to reveal theirs as well. The conclusion of this linking power, taking the metaphorical and externalizing it in the completion of a bridge, a structure that connects one side to another. The small glow it's named after, one day being at the forefront of a change that bridges the 5 great nations, unity that persists well after their mutually beneficial conflict. Sasuke is proven wrong, because he cut away those threads before he could see their worth. It's impossible to see with eyes closed, which is precisely what he did after vowing to bury the past in his shadow. But all it takes to spark this ray of enlightenment are simple words from the heart. Naruto's words as a friend. The same words Iruka gave him that made him a shinobi, and the same words he gave to his enemies thereafter. And it was only the times where he didn't that Naruto was truly lost. Indra and Asura, a generational battle between brothers. It's washed away by the singular connection of two who aren't even related by blood, yet they connect theirs all the same through the pain of conflict. All those battles, all that suffering had a purpose after all, so long as they compounded into this moment. Growth, healing, and finally, resolution. None of it possible without those hardships of the past and present. And long after the dust of that great conflict settles, a young shinobi carries that headband through a future darkness, one where all light he knows turns to shadow. But keeping in tune with the balance of a new age, he takes lessons from a man who walked in unison with others, and a man who walked in solitude, to develop a new perspective, and perhaps a novel path. But what remains consistent is that light tracing back to his grandfather, a symbol called endurance. Harmonizing with both the good and the bad, the mistakes of the past, and the success of the future, Boruto unleashes a transcendental technique, one that combines signature moves from both his mentors, energy that literally matches Earth's spiral harboring his kind, a spiral that once captured his grandmother and sent her plummeting toward an abyss. But it's within that same world that she is saved by a small helix, Minato's streak of light. Thus, so too did her spiral gain another dimension, another strength called love. It beckoned her toward a path unlike her two-dimensional cycle of loss, pain, and hatred, which mirrored the cyclical despair of war on the battlefield. With Minato, with union, she took that same form and gave it a new three-dimensional meaning. It's no longer continuously spiraling around itself, but ascending toward a brighter future. One where she can reciprocate with light of her own. She names that little helix that saved her from the darkness, the very world this young shinobi would carry on in the distant future, expanding it evermore like his father before him. Rasengan Uzuhiko, a power decreeing a timeless oath to never give up. The power of humanity.